الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So we continue inshallah ta'ala matters related to the virtues of Khadijah عنها. As we started to discuss from the year of Al-Huzn, the year of sadness and grief for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the death of his uncle and then the death of Khadijah عنها very shortly after. واختلف أهل العلم كم كان مدة الوفاة بينهما. It was the time of death, the period of death between them. Of the thing that is mentioned, روى الشيخان في صحيحيهما عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال أتى جبريل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا رسول الله هذه خديجة قد أتت معها إناء فيه إدام أو طعام أو شراب فإذا هي أتتك فاقرأ عليها السلام من ربها ومني وبشرها ببيت في الجنة من قصب ولا صخب فيه ولا نصب. Now, of the things that's mentioned, about Khadijah عنها, that Jibreel came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, this is Khadijah, she has come and she's carrying a utensil of either food or drink or some sort. So when she comes to you, then give her salams from her Lord and from myself, i.e. that Allah is giving her salam, and also who? Jibreel alayhi salam. Now, and also give her glad tidings of her house in Jannah that is made from qasab. Qasab mentions al-lu'lu al-mujawwaf, a type of pearl. Now, وَلَا صَخَبَ فِيهِ وَلَا نَصَبْ. There is no shouting, raising of the voice, dispute, nor is there any tiredness therein. Now, so this is glad tidings for Khadijah عنها. And of the things that I mentioned, the significance of two characteristics is يعني al-munaza'a wa ta'ab, يعني arguing, disputing, and being exhausted and tired. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam لما دعا إلى الإسلام أجابت خديجة طوعا فلم تحوجه إلى رفع صوت ولا منازعة ولا تعب في ذلك. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam began calling to Islam, she embraced Islam willingly. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam didn't need to raise his voice, did not need to dispute, nor was he exhausted in calling her to Islam. بل أزالت عنه كل نصب وآنسته من كل وحشة وهونت عليه كل مكروه فناسب أن يكون منزلها الذي بشرها به ربها بالصفة المقابلة لفعالها. And this was mentioned by Suhaili rahimahullah, of the Ahl al-Ilm that he mentioned. One, when she embraced Islam, she made things easy for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, relieved him of that which exhausted him, accompanied him in the best way, so he wasn't lonely, made easy things that were difficult for him. So it's befitting that her reward was similar to the characteristics that she had. And that's why I say, من اتفق مع ربه في صفة من صفاته نال من هذه الصفة. Whoever agrees with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an attribute, they will attain from that attribute. i.e., Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rahimun yuhibbur ruhama. Allah is merciful and loves those who are merciful. كما أن الله سبحانه وتعالى جميل يحب جمال. Allah is beautiful and loves the people of beauty. نعم. Allah سبحانه وتعالى كريم يحب الكرماء. Allah سبحانه وتعالى is someone who is generous, is one who is generous and loves those who are generous. نعم. So those who have these characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in a way that's befitting to His Majesty, a person who has something from this type of attribute, then they will attain the favors of it. They will attain the favors of it. That's all the things mentioned by Ahlul Ilm. Also, in another hadith, عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حسبك من نساء العالمين مريم بنت عمران وخديجة بنت خويلد وفاطمة بنت محمد وآسية امرأة فرعون. It mentions sufficient for you from the women of the world is Maryam bintu Imran, mother of Isa alayhi salam, wa Khadijatu bintu Khawaylid, wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, al-Mu'mineen, wa Fatimatu bintu Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, wa radiyallahu anhuma, yani Khadija wa Fatima bintu Rasulillah, daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa Asiyatu imra'atu Fir'aun, rahmatullah alayha. Asya, the wife of who? Fir'aun. Naam. Now, they say, what is that? Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, mentioned there's something that distinguishes them from each other. Naam. And he mentions كُلًّا مِنْهُنَّ كَفِلَتْ نَبِيًّا مُرْسَلًا. Each of them took care of a prophet, a messenger. Maryam, Isa alayhi salam, Khadija, al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Asya, Musa alayhi salam. Now, وأحسنت الصحبة, they also had the best companionship with these prophets and messengers. Also, in another narration, in Bukhari and Muslim, عن علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خير نسائها مريم وخير نسائها خديجة. The best of the Ummah's women is Maryam. The best of the Ummah's woman is Khadijah. So these ahadith explicitly mention the virtue of them. And that mentions by Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah says هذا يدل الأظهر من معناه, what is most apparent of the meaning أن كل واحدة منهما خير نساء الأرض في عصرها. Each one of them was the best of the women of the earth during their time. So during the time of Isa alayhi salam, Maryam was the best of the women. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Khadeejah عنها was the best of the women. it's important for us to acknowledge this because the men, we look up to the Sahaba, we look up to the Messenger of Allah والسلام, we look up to the Prophets and Messengers Jami'an. The examples that Allah has mentioned of them, the characteristics that they had that we are aware of from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we look up to it in order to what? Adorn ourselves with it. To adorn ourselves with these attributes, with these characteristics. Also another hadith of Ibn Abbas, قال خط رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الأرض خطوطا أربعة قال. He said that the Prophet drew 4 lines on the ground and he said, أتدرون ما هذا? Do you know what this is? قالوا الله ورسوله أعلم. Allah and His Messenger knows best. قال فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أفضل نساء أهل الجنة. The best of the women of the people of Jannah, خديجة بنت خويلد وفاطمة بنت محمد ومريم بنت عمران وآسية بنت مزاحم امرأة فرعون. Again, those 4 women that we mentioned, they are the best women of the people of Jannah. And the fact Khadeejah Anha's name is mentioned explicitly shows her virtue. In the hadith of Bukhari also في صحيحه عن عائشة عنها قالت ما غرت على أحد من نساء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما غرت على خديجة سبحان الله وما رأيتها. I was not more jealous of anyone from the women of the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم than I was of Khadija, and I never saw her. Never saw her. ولكن كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكثر ذكرها. He used to mention her abundantly. وَرُبَّمَا ذَبَحَ الشَّاةَ ثُمَّ يُقَطِّعُهَا أَعْضَاءً ثُمَّ يَبْعَثُهَا في صدائق خديجة. فربما قلت له كأنه لم يكن في الدنيا امرأة إلا خديجة فيقول إنها كانت وكان لي منها ولد. He mentioned that even when he would slaughter a sheep and he would cut it into parts and send it, he would then send some of it in sadaq as means of charity for Khadija. And he said, maybe I said to him, it's as if there was no woman in the face of the earth except for Khadija. Then as if there was no other woman but Khadija. And he would say, إِنَّهَا كَانَتْ وَكَانَتْ. She was such and such. وَكَانَ لِي مِنْهَا وَلَدْ. And I had a child from her. In another narration, in another collection of the hadith, talking about the virtue of Khadeejah Anha, it mentioned that Aisha Anha, after the Prophet would mention Khadijah so much, he say, قَدْ أَبْدَلَكَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلْ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا. She would say, maybe like, Allah has given you better. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما أبدلني الله عز وجل خيرا منها. Allah has not given me better than her. قد آمنت بي إذ كفر بي الناس. She believed in me when the people disbelieved. وصدقتني إذ كذبني الناس. And she affirmed my truthfulness when the people would deem me to be a liar. وواستني بمالها إذ حرمني الناس. And she aided me with her wealth when the people deprived me. ورزقني الله عز وجل ولدها إذ حرمني أولاد النساء. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me, provided for me the children of her when I was withheld of other children of women. It mentions all of the children of the Prophet Muhammad came from Khadeejah عنها but one, and that was Ibrahim. Ibrahim كان من ماريا. نعم القبطية. Of the things that is mentioned that the Prophet Muhammad paid her back for or كافأ خديجة عنها في الدنيا أنه لم يتزوج في حياتها غيرها. While she was alive, he didn't marry anyone else. Prophet لم يتعدد الزوجات أو لم يتزوج بغيرها إلا بعد مماتها. He didn't marry anyone else of the women until after she had passed away. Islam. Also, the things that is mentioned, she has virtues that no one else shares with her. And from them, the fact that she was the first person of the women as well to believe in Islam. And it mentions, فَسَنَّتْ ذَلِكَ لِكُلِّ مَنْ آمَنَتْ بَعْدَهَا. She laid this as a sunnah for anyone who came after her to follow this act of goodness in believing in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. فيكون لها مثل أجرهن لما ثبت في الحديث الذي أخرجه أحمد. And it mentions, so she has the reward of all the women who followed her suit and believed in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, being the first of the women to embrace Islam based on the hadith. من سن في الإسلام سنة حسنة كان له أجرها وأجر من عمل بها من بعده. Whoever does an act of goodness, whoever does in Islam an act of goodness, a sunnah that people follow, then they will get the reward of everyone who follows the action and does the action after them. Now, so that's the virtue of being as-sabiqun ila al-khairat, from the ones who are early and at the forefront of doing goodness. If you set an example for other people to follow, then you will get the reward of everyone who follows you. Don't miss out on any opportunity to do goodness. Hasten towards it. Hasten to be a key to good. Now, when people see you, they're reminded to do good. Now, because the reward of this is great. Now, as for khasa'is Khadeejah عنها, things that are specific and special about Khadeejah عنها, firstly, قال ابن القيم رحمه الله, from those khasa'is, أولا أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يتزوج عليها غيرها. Prophet didn't marry anyone else alongside her. Sometimes people use this as evidence that you should have one wife. هذا باطل. This is not correct. ليس استدلالا صحيحا. هذا كان ما قضى الله في حياتها وكان ما فعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، ولكن لا يدل أنه السنة أن يكون مع واحدة. It doesn't mean because he didn't marry anyone else other than her, it's sunnah to have one wife. Secondly, all of the children of the Prophet Muhammad were from her except for Ibrahim, as we mentioned. Also, هي خير النساء الأمة. She is the best woman of the Ummah. ومنها أنها رضي عنها لم تسؤه صلى الله عليه وسلم قط ولم تغاضبه ولم ينلها منه بلاء ولا عتب قط ولا هجر وكفى بهذه منقبة وفضيلة. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam never experienced bad character from Khadijah. She never spoke to him in a bad manner. She never earned the anger of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. She never was a cause of him being angry. She never was a cause of calamity or tiredness to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He never boycotted her or avoided her. And this is sufficient as a virtue. Where you see the way the wife will talk to the husband, it's not befitting. It's not befitting. And you see, subhanAllah, sometimes they speak in a way that is very disrespectful. Or يتحمل الرجل, the man, he's just forbearing, tolerant. I was speaking to someone recently, and they were saying, subhanAllah, a reality that has become apparent of today, that some of those who come to report domestic violence or abuse, whether it's mental or emotional abuse, has risen among men abundantly. That men are now victims of abuse. Not physical abuse. At times, Allah musta'an, it can be physical, but mental and emotional abuse. You have some men, the way their wives talk to them, you wonder, is this marriage or ownership? And they say, yeah, no. They accept it. Allah musta'an. No.
In that situation, what should you do as the man?
Me personally, this is my personal advice. If you have a wife that's disrespectful, rude, I'm not just saying what is interpreted on a personal level. Like, generally speaking, people would see her behavior, it's not acceptable. She asks you for something, you can't buy it, you say, I can't buy it, start shaming you, speaking ill against you. One, my first advice, try and get counseling. Maybe she has behaviors that she's learned that she needs to unlearn. If that doesn't work, then question, how long can you be in that situation for? That's the reality. You can't stay in a situation like that and expect to be happy. Allah has created us in different ways. There are things that are important to women that are not important to men. So if we are affected by those things that are important to women, it doesn't really bother us as it would bother a woman. And there are things that are specific to men that may not bother a woman as much. You see? From the things that men, unfortunately, can be tested with a lot is ego and pride. Where if they feel their manhood has been attacked, they can have a very negative response. But worse when this is a public issue. When other people witness this. Imagine you see a woman, she said, husband, you're a bum, you don't even work, I pay all the bills, you don't do nothing. Maybe he just lost his job. But before that, it wasn't the case, right? But now that the table's turned, that he's going through a hardship, don't have the mentality of Khadijah, عنها. She supported the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not an aid that your wife supports you financially. There's nothing wrong with this. But sometimes we're so fixated on expectations and culture that we make bad situations where it doesn't need to be the case. To please other people or to save ourselves from the speech of other people. What matters? You and your husband, or you and your wife, or what other people have to say that don't live in your household? What is the main concern? Your household. So do what works for you. Find that common ground that works for you. Don't entertain outsiders. And this is a sign of weakness when people are always easily influenced by outsiders. Shows weak character. Now, and the reality is, for example, I heard cases, the wife's doing haram, the husband's telling him, she's not accepting it, then leave. Don't punish yourself. If she wants to continue haram, then tell you, but that's without me. Khalas. Allah will give you better. Now.
Also, what you just said, I totally agree with. I've heard friends who've been married and older people I know that when there's kids in the situation.
I have a very harsh approach when it comes to kids being in a situation.
Okay.
My stance, I don't speak for everyone, I speak for myself. I don't believe in doing things just because kids are involved. Why do I say that? Because your sanity, your well-being comes first in this situation. But it's not affecting the kid's health. But let's say you're in a situation that you end up depressed, an emotional wreck, no happiness in your life. How do your children benefit from that? They don't. Growing up with parents that are not in a good place, the children don't benefit. So it actually causes more harm. You have people of country, they're basically flatmates. Flatmates. Why? Because of the sake of the children. No. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Your children will not always be children. You see, and people, they spend all their time saying no for the kids, but time, and when they're older, unfortunately, some of the children, they forget about you. Especially in this day and age, the children forget about you. Every time you see the parents doing as much as they can to give the children a good life, and the child just throws it back in the face with no gratitude. Why? Because they're chasing the worldly life, following the worst of examples of people. Like, don't live for your children. Fulfill your responsibility. Show them that this is the life you lived and they can be a part of it, yes. But don't make them your life. Because brothers are being tested with their children, not being able to see their children. Broken. The emotional damage is so severe that some of them become mentally ill. Now the father's become mentally ill, can't see his children. For what? Because of the bitter ex-wife, the bitter mother. There's no harm feared for the child. But now, even if the child wants a relationship with the father is no longer in a fit place to have a relationship with the child. Why? He's mentally broken. What's left of him? Nothing. He has nothing he can give back to the child. Allahu musta'an. And this is happening too much. Too much, wallahi, too much. I've seen people I know growing up, subhanAllah, from childhood, now, Allah musta'an, addicted to drugs, alcoholics, and that. Why? Can't see their children. They can't bear it. Can you imagine a parent, a father wanting to see the child and being prevented because someone feels bitter. When you got some fathers, they don't even care. And sometimes fathers are put through so much, they end up saying, I don't even care anymore. They emotionally switch off. Emotionally switch off. And who is hurt in all of this? The mother that's trying to get back at the father, she's only hurting the children. Only hurting the children. And that's why we have to remember the likes of Khadijah عنها. These are examples that women are supposed to follow. And the men are supposed to follow the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It doesn't mean you're always going to get it right, but at least you have a place of guidance to always refer back to. And you're able to correct things when you get them wrong. Now, I'm saying in the class, Nawaqid al-Islam, for example, why is it that women will not come and settle these disputes with their children's father in an Islamic manner? Why are they all queuing up for years to go to court? Why can't we judge it among the Muslims according to the Sharia first? This is a sad reality. Allah musta'an. It's embarrassing that Muslim fathers are having to apply to court to see their child. Nothing else. They're not asking for money, they're asking to see the child. That's it. Imagine. We're supposed to have a religion that's complete, but we embarrass ourselves by going to the judicial systems because we can't deal with things according to Islam. Or you have the fact that, for example, a woman knows maybe the ruling won't go in her favor. So I will not prefer an Islamic ruling. I prefer to go down the Western road. It's going to be better for me. Hada kufr. Yeah, that's how deep it is. Yes, this is kufr. To prefer or think that the ruling of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better, of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better, that's a kufr. You have to be cautious. And this is where it boils down to the reality of intentions. The reality of intentions. Find one hadith, Khadijah radiallahu anha shouting at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Find one hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying he boycotted Khadijah radiallahu anha. Find one. لا يوجد. Khadijah radiallahu anha is the one when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received revelation, he said, Zammiluni, Zammiluni. In the beginning of revelation, when there was something that he was shocked and in fear of, he said, cover me, in a state of fear. She didn't say, what happened, what happened? Now something happens, the man is in shock or he's upset. I said, what happened, what happened? Talk to me. Why don't you talk to me? Yo, this is why I don't like you, this is why I get so mad with you. You know, you keep it in your head. He's not ready to talk. He's still in shock. Khadijah, she didn't say what happened. She waited. The Prophet spoke to her when he was ready to what? Speak. And what did she do? She listened. She listened. And when he thought that he was being punished, she said, "La." She reminded him of his good character as to why this would not be a punishment. This is how we have to be. I'm not saying this to say women need to be like this for their husbands only. Even the husband has to be like this for the wife. If you don't support your wife, who else is going to support her? If you don't compliment your wife, tell your wife she looks beautiful and the likes, guess what's going to happen? Someone on the streets will say, mashallah, sister, you look pretty. She's like, Wow, you noticed me. Then she's going to come home and ask you for divorce. That's the reality. She wants the brother who said, MashaAllah, sister. Right? Allah musta'an. Allah has given us these examples to live by. To follow them. You find happiness. Too many of us are lost and trying to find out what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? Wallahi, this is natural things. You don't need to go to school for it. You don't need to buy an online course for it. You need to look at the example of the best of the creation, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions, the female companions that were around him. You'll not find one hadith describing the bodies of any of the Sahabiyat. Especially not the wives of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Any hadith we mentioned describing Khadijah عنها, what kind of hair she had, how tall she was, her eyes, la shay, nothing. But now, today, the women are describing themselves to everyone. And if the husband gets jealous and upset about this, he's the problem. You have sisters who think abaya means the length of the dress only, and not the tightness. Allah musta'an. Some of what the sisters wear today, it reminds me of when I studied the history of the Tudors in school. Above waist is tight, below waist is like a parachute. You know when they put the basket underneath the dress to make the bottom part go wide, but everything up is so tight. Rookie. That's what happens today. Yeah. Or you have sisters dressing away, drawing attention to themselves. Not at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nah. And then we wonder why we find ourselves in places that we're in today. We wonder why we're people who are drug dealers, people who are people of evil, have no shyness to approach quote unquote practicing sister. We say quote unquote. Because don't think salah is enough. Nah. You have to rectify your heart. If people are approaching you in the street, you're doing something wrong. You're noticed too much. Yes. And some, they beautify themselves and they go to the places where they'll be noticed, seeking attention. Allahu musta'an. They want to be news. Who everyone's talking about. This is number one way to stay single, not to get married. Yes. The number one way to stay single is to be news of the town. Everyone's talking about that sister. And everybody's like, yeah, I don't want her. They can have her then. It's for the streets. Yeah, we have to be cautious now. Man. Also of the things that's mentioned specifically about Khadeejah عنها, she was the first woman to enter Islam, rather she was the first of mankind to enter into Islam. But let's not talk about those that enter Islam, let's talk about the first man, the first woman, the first freed slave, who was previously a slave, that was Zayd. And then you had the first young child, and that was Ali ibn Talib. These are the first ones to enter into Islam. Also, from that which is specific to Khadijah عنها, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received glad tidings from Jibreel ﷺ that Allah And Jibreel alayhi salam sends salams to her. Can you imagine that? Jibreel coming to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, Allah is saying, Salamu alayki ya Khadija. Subhanallah. And also Jibreel alayhi salam saying, and also from me. The virtue that Allah mentions you like this. How can we not take such a woman as a role model? Allah musta'an. Rather today the women want to take role models that are celebrity women. And they say that they're successful. But look how much times they've been married and divorced, and how much times they've been in relationships, and it's always front page news. But this is the ideal woman, right? Allah musta'an. Ajib. Ajib. The mindset of the people is crazy. You'll see a married couple will ruin their whole relationship because of what? A celebrity. A celebrity. I saw a video and I always say, Alhamdulillah for Islam. Alhamdulillah for Islam. And we don't even have to worry about things like this when we choose the right woman. A man, he gets married. We don't do music and these things. But he gets his wife's favorite artist to come and perform at the marriage. What does his wife do? She falls on her knees at the guy's waist, holding around his waist, dancing like this. And the husband is just watching. What does the comments section say? That would be immediate divorce. Do I have to worry about that as a man, a Muslim man? Alhamdulillah. But when they're sharing this, people say, that's the best life. What life is that? Rather, she should, based on principle, although we don't condone these things, she should have run to her husband to show gratitude. And you really brought this person who I idolize, who I love so much, but you fall on your knees, holding the guy, and your husband's just watching. Where's the manhood in this? Alhamdulillah for Islam. Alhamdulillah for Islam. Now, I always say it's weird. Celebrities, what's the difference between them and us? Nothing. Nothing. Only thing that's different is the amount of money they have. Alhamdulillah. But we have Islam. We have Islam. This is something to be so boastful of. It boasts for the man that you actually show your Islam, you don't hide it. Never hide your Islam. Don't be ashamed of your Islam. What do these people have? Nothing that benefits them in the next life. Nothing. No peace, no freedom, nothing. You can walk wherever you want in the land of the earth, travel, be happy, ponder over the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let them do that. What happens? Since they open their door, pictures. They can't do anything except there's someone watching them, someone disturbing the peace, as they say. But people are chasing this life and not realizing the ones who are living it, they are not happy. They are not happy. Wallahu musta'an. But it's all perspective. It's all perspective. We're going to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Next lesson we'll start to speak about the marriage of the Prophet Muhammad after Khadeejah عنها, and the changes that started to happen after this time. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala. But again, it's for us to remember the most virtuous of this ummah, because from our iman is that we love them. We love Khadijah عنها. She's the mother of the believers, the first woman to enter into Islam. And we remind ourselves of the struggles that they went through for the sake of Islam, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of the message of Allah Azza wa Jal being conveyed until it reached us up until this day now. Now. And also as a guideline, a man is looking to get married, choose carefully. Choose carefully. A woman is looking to get married, choose carefully. The book that I'm using is Al-Lu'la' al-Maknoon fi Sirat al-Nabi al-Ma'moon. Alongside in English When the Moon Split. Now. هذا هو الكتاب. ونكتفي بهذا وأصلي وأسلم على نبينا وحبيب محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.